All right, everybody. Today we will be working on lesson 5, that is returning change. Now, in this lesson, the tools that you will need is the lesson note itself, which is 2 pages long. You will need the worksheet after, also 2 pages long. And for this lesson, I would recommend having one of your reference sheets. That is this guy right here, the Making Change reference sheet. This summarizes the 2 different ways that you can calculate the kinds of change that you will need to give back to the customer. Let's get started. In lesson 5, we talk about what kind of change to give back when you're given or giving cash to somebody else. Example 1 states that you work cash at Tim Hortons and the customer's bill comes to $2.26. The customer gives you $5, so how much change do you give? The first thing that you need to consider always is the fact that we don't work with pennies anymore. That means that you need to round. That means that you need to round the total bill to the nearest nickel. So $2.26 rounded to the nearest nickel is going to give us $2.25. We are rounding down. So at this point, there are 2 different methods that you can take. The method that the note uses is counting up from $2.25 to $5. We'll do that in a second. The second method that is not done in this note, but you can still take, is the following. I'll do that on the side, and then if you like this method, you can write it down and use it in the future. Step 1 is to subtract. That means that we are going to take the $5 that the customer gave us, and we're going to subtract $2.25. Now, the first thing that we would need to do for this subtraction is 0 minus 5. I can't do that because the 0 is too small, so I need to steal from this 0. I can't do that, so I need to steal from this 5. So this 5 becomes 4. This 0 becomes 10, but I need to steal 1 from that 10, so really it becomes 9. And this 0 becomes 10. If you struggle with subtraction the long way, please refer back to lesson 1 where we go over these concepts. Now we can subtract our first column. 10 minus 5 gives us 5, 9 minus 2 gives us 7, and 4 minus 2 gives us 2. This means that the customer needs $2.75 as change. So one way that you could calculate the change that you need to give back is by subtracting and then simply using coins to make up $2.75. In this case, you could do that with 2 loonies as well as 3 quarters. If you prefer, another way to solve the same problem would be the following. Going up in increments, we need to count all the way from $2.25 to $5. Start off by counting up to the nearest 10 cents. So if we start at $2.25, going up to the nearest 10 cents would be $2.30. I'm not rounding, I am going up to the nearest increment of 10 cents. Now, in order to get from $2.25 to $2.30, I just need 1 nickel. Next, I am going to go up to the nearest 50 cents. So let's see what kind of coins I need to go from $2.30 to $2.50. Well, that's 20 cents. I can do that with 2 dimes. Next, I need to go up to the nearest $1. Well, if I'm at $2.50, the nearest dollar up would be $3. Remember, you're always going up. Our goal is to get up to $5, the amount that the customer paid. So how do I get from $2.50 to $3? That is 50 cents, 2 quarters. Finally, from $3, I need to get to the final amount that the customer provided, which was $5. I can get from $3 to $5 with a toonie. If you can count all the way up from $2.25, let me get a highlighter out. If you can count all the way up from $2.25 to $5 using coins, then you can find the change that you need to give back to the customer. In this case, that change is going to be a toonie, 2 quarters, 2 dimes, as well as 1 nickel. You could use either the strategy on the left or the strategy on the right. Although the answers are slightly different, these are both acceptable ways to give change back and calculate what change to give back to the customer. Remember, you can always refer to this reference sheet to go over how to use each strategy. You only need to know one. Let's work on example 2. For the rest of this note, I'm going to be using the strategy on the right where we count up, but you're welcome to use whatever strategy you prefer. You're working cash at Subway. Customer's bill comes to $6.68. He gives you a $10 bill. How much change do you give? Well, $6.68. Let's start by rounding that up to the nearest nickel. That would be $6.70. Good. Now we need to use coins to count up from $6.70 all the way to $10. Let's start by going up to the nearest 10 cents. Well, $6.70, that's already at an increment of 10 cents. We don't need to give back any money. Now, what's the nearest 50 cents up? Well, 50 cents would be like $6, $6.50, $7, $7.50. If I'm at $6.70 and I'm counting up by 50s, the nearest increment of 50 would be $7. How do I get to $7? I use 3 dimes. Good, we're at $7. What is the nearest $1 amount? Well, $7 is already an increment of $1, so we don't need to fill in that row. Nothing changes. Finally, we're going to count up to our final amount. The amount given was $10. How do I get from $7 to $10? Well, I would need a toonie and I would need a loonie. So all you need to do is read the coins that you chose to get here, and you have a toonie, a loonie, as well as 3 dimes is the amount of change that you need to give back if the customer gives you $10 for a bill of $6.70. At this point, I would recommend that you give the next 2 examples a try on your own, pause the video, and then play the video afterwards in order to check your work. I'm going to go over these questions a little bit faster with the expectation that you've already tried them. You're working cash at McDonald's and the customer's bill comes to $5.53. She gives you $8. How much change do you give? Well, first thing we do is we round to the nearest nickel. So this 53 is going to round up to 55. Our bill is going to be $5.55. $5.55, let's go up to the nearest 10 cents. Remember, we always go up. This would be $5.60. In order to get from $5.55 to $5.60, we just need 1 nickel. Now let's go up to the nearest 50 cents. Counting up by 50 cents at a time, the next increment of 50 cents after $5.60 would be $6. How do I get from $5.60 to $6? I would need 40 cents. I would need 4 dimes. Next, I need to go up to the nearest dollar. Well, $6 is already at the nearest dollar. There's nowhere to go, so we stay where we are. Finally, let's go up to our final amount, the amount that was given to us. That means going from $6 to $8. $2 requires a toonie. So the total change that I needed to give was a toonie, 4 dimes, as well as a nickel. Final question. The customer's bill comes to $11.34. He gives you $15. Let's round to the nearest nickel. $11.34 is going to round up to $11.35. We need to use coins to count from $11.35 to $15. So that is going to be, starting with up to the nearest 10 cents, that is going to be $11.40. Going from $11.35 to $11.40 costs us a nickel. Going up to the nearest 50 cents would be $11.50. I only need 10 cents, I only need a dime to get from $11.40 to $11.50. Going from $11.50 up to the nearest $1 brings us to $12. In order to get from $11.50 to $12, that's 50 cents, I can do so with 2 quarters. I could also use 5 dimes, but 2 quarters is probably easier. Finally, we go up to the amount given. That means going all the way up to $15, which the customer gave me. In order to get from $12 to $15, I would need $3. That is a toonie as well as a loonie. So, the total change given is a toonie, a loonie, 2 quarters, a dime, and a nickel. The final question of this note, how would you adjust the coins you give back to the customer if you ran out of toonies? No big deal. If you ran out of toonies, all you needed to do is use 2 loonies instead. Right, so it would be 3 loonies, 2 quarters, a dime, and a nickel. All right, that is it for that lesson. Make sure that you're completing the worksheet. Remember that there are 2 different methods that you can use. You can either use this method right here, where you subtract first, and then you use coins to make up whatever that difference is. Or you could use the method that we use many times in this lesson, where you start at the price of the bill and use coins to count all the way up to the amount that the customer provided. If you have any questions, please make sure to let me know. Thank you.